Hello and welcome to another Unmasked episode of So What's on Your Mind? I'm your host, Lamar Barrett, and today we are reaching out to one of the best talent evaluators and event coordinators in the state of North Carolina. His title with Hoop State, it says owner, event coordinator, talent evaluator, but he does so much more than that, especially for these kids, these players. He makes sure the kids are being seen and gaining exposure. He's also, which is hilarious, he's one of the funniest individuals on social media. And he will make comments on subjects and does not mind debating what he believes in, which I really respect. As a coach, you got friends in this profession that will share information about individuals, especially with recruiting services and evaluators. So his name is, and I'll share Andre Gray, who's now the head coach of Elizabeth City State. I know I reached out to him one time. I used to recruit the state of North Carolina, so I reached out to Andre Gray. One of the first names he said, "Yo, you need to reach out to Rod Bridges. He's one of the best guys in this state that a lot of people don't know about, and eventually they will." So you reach out to him. Like I said, his name was given to me a few years ago now. Yeah. And then you reach out to him, you get valuable information, intel, and he knows what he's talking about. So I knew him as strictly as a business person back then. Mm-hmm. Then the pandemic hits and it allowed me to kind of get to know him personally. Yep. So if he says something, I know when you become kind of friends or people is like, he has something on social media. I may see it. I'm debating. I'm reaching out to him. It don't matter what time of day, what time of night. And I'm going to reach out and say, no, man, I don't agree with that. And we're going to sit there and debate. He hear me, I hear him. And that's it. It ends there. So, but we're here to find out, what's going on in his world today, whether it's education, sports, life, music, health, or anything he wants to talk about. I think he's a voice that needs to be heard to a lot of people. So I wanted to bring him on. I think he's definitely going to be a big-time superstar in this basketball profession for a long time in this basketball world. Wow. So I want to bring on Rod Bridges. Good morning and welcome to the show. So what's on your mind?
Well, first off, man, good morning and thank you for having me. What an introduction, man. I couldn't have wrote any better myself, man. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. It probably feels like I wrote that script and just handed it to you. It was like, here, read this out. So, but no, thank you, man. It's an honor, man. I value your friendship, man, your wisdom. You said what you hit on was true, man. We go back and forth about a lot of stuff, man. But I love it because you're making me better at what I do. So I definitely appreciate that. But what I'll say on my mind today, man, what I really want to talk about is recruiting, but I want to talk about the parents. Oftentimes, we look at a kid in recruiting and we see what their strengths and what their weaknesses are. And, a lot of kids, you see what they're capable of and things like that. But as an evaluator, you have to find out what's their weaknesses. What are their weaknesses? Because when somebody, when you called me and say, hey, what's this kid here? What does he do well? Okay, what's some of the things he needs to work on? And sometimes, man, honestly, the honest God truth is we talk about their parents. Parents can really make or break a kid's recruitment. Parents don't understand a lot of times your kid's on a recruiting board. You got option 1, option 2. These are our top 2 guys. And then if we miss on both of those 2 guys, then we got probably 4 or 5 other guys in the mix that we're trying to get. But what happens is when you're on in that pecking order, they'll go back and say, okay, we'll see. We'll talk about guy 1 and 2. Guy 1 is probably the best guy that we want, the guy that we want, but his parents are a little on the edge and we really don't want to deal with that. So we may end up going with guy 2 because we know his parents aren't seen all the time. One thing I'll tell parents all the time is you have to, it's okay when you're at a game to be seen but not heard. Go to the game and cheer for your kid, but don't be in the crowd going back and forth with people, doing crazy stuff, things like that. And the biggest thing I tell parents, get off Twitter with your thoughts. everything that you do and say is a reflection of your kid. When you go on Twitter and say, well, I don't understand why this child is getting recruited and my child isn't. Every time you see something, what happens is you get a little click, a screenshot. Nobody's gonna ever reply to it. Nobody's gonna ever say anything. They're not gonna reply because nobody wants to be a part of that. But what they're gonna do is it's gonna go to that screenshot where, and before you know it, it's on 10 college coaches' phone. So parents have to understand at the end of the day, what you do affects your child. Be seen, but don't be heard. You know what I mean? So that's heavy on my mind because I see it all the time on social media. When parents come to me for advice, the first thing I tell them, just support your child, love your child, and make sure that you're out of the way. When you talk to college coaches, don't give off the impression that A, you want something, B, you're in control of the situation, because you have no control of what your child does once they get to that next level. So those are kind of what it was on my heart, man, because I go through it so much, you know.
I'm gonna say this, that was great jewels that you dropped, because they do need to understand that. Be seen, but not heard. That's awesome. And it's all about, you just said, separate yourself in the recruiting process. Like, you're not recruiting just the kid. That's what people forget sometimes. You are recruiting the family. And that's why when I said to you, I've reached out and it's intel. Like, hey man, how like, you ask them about how the kid is, you ask the coaches about the grades and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, you're like, hey man, what's his family situation like? What's his life like? Like, you know, how are his parents? That stuff is important. It is important. I'm glad you talked about that today, man. That's something big. So I'm glad I had you on this morning to talk about that, especially with the recruiting process is still going on right now. So, and like you just said, you've always been evaluated. You've always been evaluated in this business, whether you're a player, parent, or whatever, it doesn't matter. So, man, I appreciate that for coming on this morning, sharing that wisdom. And I hope a lot of parents hear that. So, but now, man, and thanks again. Good luck to you with all your ventures going on. Like, you know, like, I know you run these tournaments and it's going to hit. November is here soon. I know you can prepare for that, man. But thanks again. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you, brother.
All right.